Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. So of course we had the ban list finally drop this weekend, and it definitely did some things. I know a ton of players are saying it was too soft on Snake Eye. Others are saying that it was a really good list. I'm probably personally closer to thinking that it was actually pretty good, especially when we keep in mind that the whole Snake Eye Diab Belstar lore is still continuing on with the next several core sets, so we don't want to completely get rid of those cards. We didn't have a ton of cards being freed from the ban list this time around, so we'll cover off a few of the really obvious price spikes and then move on to some other cards currently trending as a result of the list. Let's get started. Kicking things off, we have That Grass Looks Greener. So this is a card that was just put from banned to limited status, and it's a pretty interesting card. You send cards from the top of your deck to the graveyard until you and your opponent both have the same number of cards in your decks. So before, this card could do some crazy things if you did choose to play 60 cards, especially against an opponent that only has 40 in their deck, where you mill just like 20 cards right on turn 0. Now, I think this card is still interesting, but I don't think it'll ultimately have the same impact on the format now as it did back then. This card is just at 1, so in a 60 card deck, your chances of opening with it are pretty low. Right now, there's also a ton of different players that are choosing to play anywhere from 44 to 48 card decks, so that's several fewer cards that you're going to be able to mill with That Grass Looks Greener. And then of course, this card can still be hit by something like Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, which I feel like if your opponent saw that you were playing a 60 card deck, they would just be holding onto and saving for grass. Now the cool thing is that you can search for this card with Triple Tactics Thrust, which wasn't a thing when grass was legal before, and of course you can still use Left Arm Offering to get it from the deck as well. This card looks to hopefully make Infernoids a strong deck, which can also use the Wanted engine to access Decatron, and some players are also really hoping that you can use it with Tierliament and Lightsworn as well. Now price-wise, this card still has just the one secret rare printing from back in Raging Tempest. Now this card, although it was banned, has never been exactly cheap. It's always been around a $10 to $15 card. However, we did see this card shoot up to as high as $45 on Saturday after the list dropped, though it has cooled down since and seems to have stabilized at around $25 to $30. With this one, I think we have to assume that it's going to be reprinted, especially if Konami was planning ahead with this one. It could be in the tins, or maybe the Quarter Century Bonanza set as a Quarter Century secret rare. Personally, I don't think that this card will be all impactful on the meta, so keep one copy of it if it's something that you're interested in playing, but other than that, I would definitely try to move these while they're super hyped up. This next one's a little bit strange. We have Red Rose Dragon. Now this is a card that was limited but actually just went to 3. It was used alongside the Adventurer token and Tenyi cards back when Crystron, Halqifibrax, and Auroradon were still in the game. It's a level 3 dragon tuner that special summons a Rose Dragon from your hand or deck if it is sent to the graveyard as a synchro material, so this card would be used to summon out Rock's Rose Dragon from the deck and just make a bunch of different synchro plays. Now on one hand, we do have Halq banned, so cheating out this card from the deck definitely isn't as easy as it was before. However, we did just have all of the big dragon rulers move to 2, and they happen to be level 7 dragons. I definitely think there could be some synergy with Red Rose Dragon to make cards like Bestial Dissipator and Chengying. I don't really know how good it is. Maybe I'm just really hopeful because I didn't get to play Dragon Rulers back in Dragon Ruler format. Anyways, I wanted to make a note of a weird thing happening with the price of this card. Its only holo printing came in Legendary Duelist Season 2, where you could get one of 4 different ultras. For some reason, it's just the regular ultra rare with the yellow or gold text that has spiked in price to where it's now between $8 and $10 each. However, the colored version ultra rares all remain down at around $1. Obviously, someone's crazy because they gave Red Rose Dragon a blue, green, and purple ultra rare text version, but not red. I have no idea why. But yeah, just a note here that there are affordable holo versions of this card available, though there is a price difference for different colored letter versions of the same card from the same set. Okay, so we're moving on to some interesting ones. The first one I want to make note of here is Drron Nova. So of course, this is a card for the Drron theme, a ritual-based deck that aimed to easily bring out the Herald of Ultimateness. On the list, we actually had Ava going unbanned and finally coming back to 1. This seems to be a pretty big win for Drron, which can search for Ava with Ben 10, and then discard Ava with Herald, then use Ava to search for copies of cards like Herald of Orange Light and Diviner of the Herald. Now overall, this does seem to add a bit more power to the Drron deck, though it did lose Beatrice, which would have been a really solid way to send Ava directly to the graveyard. However, Drtrons did also get a couple of new support cards in the Infinite Forbidden, so maybe there's a chance that the deck could perform better moving forward, at the very least at the local or regional level. Now oddly enough, Drron Nova still only has 1 printing, as an ultra rare from back in Genesis Impact, which is a set that came out back in 2020. Every time that we see Drron cards hyped up for whatever reason, it always seems like a good time to sell Nova because it should be reprinted, but Konami for whatever reason seems to just not want to reprint Nova. As a result, its 1 printing was down between $15 and $20, but it's now double that at between $35 and $40 per copy. I really do hope that this time around, between the tins and the quarter century bonanza, they should hopefully finally give us a reprint of Drron Nova and just make Drron a budget deck. But really at this point, when Konami will reprint Drron Nova is anybody's guess. Up next, we have another pretty familiar face here on Market Watch. It's Tierliament Cash Tia. So this card has 2 different ways to mill cards. It mills on summon, and then it mills if it's sent to the graveyard as well. This card happens to be a Cash Tia card, so you can search for it if you are playing Cash Tia Fenrir, which is another pretty broken standalone monster. Tierliament Cash Tia is currently getting some attention as a result of the unbanning of That Grass Looks Greener. There's all of a sudden a ton of players wanting to look at different mill decks, whether that's Infernoid, Lightsworn, or Tierlaments, or some combination of those, and those players are just looking at all of the cards that will help them to mill, especially since they do have room with 60 cards in their deck most of the time. Tierliament Cash Tia is a pretty good way to do that, especially since it can be a free body that helps to make link plays as well. This card has seen hype at various points in the past over the last year or so, especially whenever Tierlaments happens to start getting attention for whatever reason. Tierliament Cash Tia only has 1 printing as an ultra rare in Photon Hypernova and has gone from being under around $8 to $10 to now being a solid $15 to $20 card with very few quantities available on the market. The thing is, this card should be reprinted in the 2024 tins, so even though it hasn't officially been confirmed by those Konami posts on Facebook and Twitter, I think most of us are assuming that this card is going to be in there, making this a pretty questionable buyout. I always find it weird when players are willing to buy out cards that are 90% likely to be reprinted within the upcoming month, so definitely look to offload these at their inflated prices before the reprints likely bring the prices back down. So this one didn't receive a buff directly because of a card on the list, but rather because it saw effectively 0 changes. It's Elzette of the White Forest. So the White Forest deck was a pretty solid contender last format. It was a step behind Snake Eye, Tenpai, and Yubel, but was still able to perform relatively well. The White Forest cards basically went through the entire ban list untouched. The Runic version saw 0 hits at all, and the only argument that you could make is that Toy Centurions technically lost the King Calamity lock. That said, with all of the other main decks in the format getting weaker, I think players are assuming that White Forest will be good enough to be a meta-relevant deck this upcoming format, and are looking to pick up the cards. Elzette used to be a cheaper card than a Stellar, both of which are secret rares from the Infinite Forbidden for the White Forest archetype, but players seem to have realized that Elzette is an objectively better card. Because of this, their prices have sort of flip-flopped, with Elzette going from 20 to 30, while a Stellar went from 30 to 20. However, with this hype following the ban list, we actually now see Elzette up to between $40 and $45, and at the time I'm making this video, there are less than 20 copies available on TCG Player. This card is brand new as well, so we don't have to risk White Forest cards being reprinted anytime soon. The only thing I will say is that it's never a guarantee what deck is going to be meta relevant in any given format. We always have players that are innovating or trying out new techs, so maybe White Forest has enough to be top tier, but also maybe not. Hopefully you already have these from before the list if you are really interested in playing them. If not, wait until a couple of weeks after the list comes out to see how the deck is able to perform, and we should have seen the price cool off at least a little bit by then. Alright, here's a price spike that's actually kind of annoying to me. It's Diab Belstar the Black Witch. So on the most recent ban list, a ton of players, including me, thought that Wanted would be at least limited to 1. That card is literally a quick play chaos base that doesn't require a discard, and even though it wasn't hit, I think it will be hit to 1 or banned eventually. However, the whole Sinful Spoils engine is still alive, which means you can use this package in decks like Snake Eye, Fire Kings, Infernoids, and Rescue Ace, and maybe even in odd decks here and there to summon out something like a Jet Synchron. Because of this, we did see Diab Belstar bought out. This card was down at around $18 to $20. However, after the ban list dropped, it's now already a $40 to $45 card. However, this is another buyout that just doesn't make any sense to me at all. We actually have confirmation from Konami that Diab Belstar will be reprinted in the Quarter Century Bonanza set, and it will be getting the Rarity Collection treatment, printing it in every rarity except for the Quarter Century Secret Rare since it was already a QCR in Age of Overlord. There is also a chance that Diab Belstar could be in the 2024 tins as well, since Wanted is confirmed to be in there. I don't know how much Konami is going to end up double dipping. So yeah, to me this is definitely a weird card to buy out. I hope that none of you took part in this one. If you do own extra Diab Belstars, or if you don't plan on using them very much over the next couple of months, this is a card you definitely want to look at dumping while they are seeing some crazy hype. And finally, the last card we're talking about for today is Momento Bone Party. This card is a quick play spell card for the Momento deck. It lets you destroy a Memento monster from your hand or field, and then take a Memento monster from your deck and either add it to your hand or special summon it to your side of the field. Now this is a really great way to get bodies onto the board for the Memento strategy if you brick or you are interrupted, but it also helps the deck to play around cards like Effect Veiler and Infinite Impermanence. Now prior to the ban list dropping, a lot of players were thinking that Memento might be good after the list. They were already able to compete with the other decks last format, and especially with Fiendsmith, they were already a pretty crazy deck that could do some really cool things. After the ban list, they did lose access to Beatrice, but for the most part, the deck is still going to be able to function and pull off some cool combos, and I think that a lot of the community is keeping an eye on the deck as well. Bone Party is one of the best cards for the strategy, and because of all of this attention that the deck is getting, we've now seen Bone Party go from being a $18 to $20 card before, to now being a $30 to $35 card, with only 8 listings available on TCG Player at the time I'm filming this. Kind of a weird one because we haven't seen reprints of cards from Valiant Smashers or Wild Survivors yet, which are the 2 most recent side sets. So those 2 sets definitely could have had some of their more notable or important archetypes reprinted in this year's tins, since that is a 400 something card set this year as well. If this is a deck that you are looking to pick up and play in the new format, you might just want to wait until the tin's contents are revealed before you decide to invest in a Memento core just in case. Alright guys, that is all we have for today's episode. I am so glad that the ban list finally dropped. I know it wasn't as crazy harsh to Snake Eye as everyone was expecting, but I think it's a good list that will, keep things leveled out and a little bit more different, at least until Rage of the Abyss. Rage of the Abyss is bringing the Azamina archetype, and that's theoretically going to boost Snake Eye even further, but we should see a little bit more parity in the game until then. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch episode, please make sure you let me know by hitting that thumbs up button. Make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.